What's up, weirdos? I just wanted to do an intro and just kind of say, for anybody who listens to the show, friends, fans, homies, whatever you are, sorry I kind of been MIA for about a month. It's been a stressful time. I'm sure, like a lot of you, we don't really know what's going to happen. Just to kind of update you on my life. A few weeks ago, my mother had a stroke. She's okay. She was in a physical rehab place. She's coming home Tuesday, but because of COVID, nobody could be with her. And then same week, my car broke down on me. Had a coworker who's also in recovery who, I've been trying to help and kind of, just help him, Me and him had a couple of arguments, and I was my ass was threatened to be beaten. But all of that's resolved now. I mean, it's just a stressful. I had a really stressful week. One of the most stressful weeks I've had since getting sober. And I didn't have to drink or drug over it. And I thought about a lot of things, but the thing that kept me grounded during that whole process or during that whole stressful time period was I've gained so much progress and I have gained so much of my life back. I can't afford to lose any of that. I can't afford to take a step backwards. So this episode, it's with my last sponsor, who I desperately should have called before now, Russell, and then my good friend Marcus, who's been on before. We just kind of addressed how this is affecting the recovery community, how they're both dealing with it. Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoy. And if you're struggling, please reach out. Reach out to me. Reach out to somebody. It's a very stressful time right now, but that doesn't mean that, you have to relapse or use or abuse yourself over all of this, There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to get through this together. So, yeah, hope you enjoy. Check. All right, so Weird, Fat, and Sober podcast. I'm joined by my friends Russell and Marcus. What's up, my dudes?
What's up, buddy?
What's up?
How's you guys' quarantine going?
It's quarantine. I don't know. It's a very strange time.
Crazy yet?
No.
Y'all are like the only other humans I've really seen besides my girlfriend and coworkers.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it was a little. I'll be honest. There was a little bit of a strange feeling walking into a new building.
yeah, not
You
the
know what I
same
mean?
2 places you've
Yeah.
been or 3 places.
Yeah, I've stayed very to myself. Stayed in my own really small world.
Yeah.
And walking in here, it was it wasn't like I didn't hesitate or anything, but there was in the back of my mind there was a little something. I said, "Hey, this may not be right," but
I just for y'all's sake, I've been very careful about wearing gloves and mask out to the store, wiping down my groceries, wiping down everything I touch, throwing the gloves away. I feel like I don't know if you guys ever worked in restaurants, but if you work in a restaurant, cross contamination, you gotta that. I've thought about that every time I've had gloves on and shit, but I feel like most people don't even think about that. You know what I mean? I've seen signs that say don't wear gloves because you're gonna touch. If you're not gonna throw them away between places, you're gonna touch everything.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just don't know, I guess, or think about it. But it's weird, man. It's a weird time, and it was kind of your idea, really, to address how this is affecting the recovery community. And I know, Russell sponsored me in the past, and I know that he sponsors people on a regular basis. You work and, own. You work in one sober living and own and operate another one. So, I feel like both of you guys is good to kind of address it. But before we get into how it's affecting the community, I just kind of wanted to ask how are you guys dealing with this, and how are you maintaining your spirituality through this whole thing? And whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, I'll start. I think maintaining spirituality in this time is definitely hard, just because there's not a lot of social interaction with people, but it's something that's temporary. When I look at quarantine and I look at this situation that we're in right now, it's only temporary. It's going to change. It's very easy to find optimism in this kind of setting, that things are going to get better, hope for the future, that we'll be back doing what we love to do, know. In terms of like sponsorship and stuff like that, that's definitely like declined a lot since the quarantine stuff, just because I'm trying to meet with guys on Zoom and not in person. I don't want to meet with a guy in person and then not meet with other people in person. I want to keep it all on a fair plane with that, because if I start meeting with one guy in person, then I'm going to feel guilty or bad that I'm not meeting with other people and giving them the same attention. But I can't be meeting with, 5 or 6 guys on a regular basis in person. It's just too much exposure.
No, I totally get that. Mm-hmm. What about you? I mean, how are you maintaining through this whole thing?
I think when the quarantine started, when all of this started, it kind of raised a lot of concerns, but it just kind of added stress. Right. It really didn't change anything of my day to day. So you mentioned that I worked in a sober living and then I own one too. Well, the one that I worked at, that I started to pull back on that, and I started to see that the implications of doing that, and there was like a statewide or a citywide order that said you can't really be doing that. Right. So I actually went ahead and left that one.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, I left that one because, I mean, I put in a 2 weeks notice and I did it all the right way. And that was kind of the plan anyways, was eventually for me to phase out of that position and go and to do something else. But when all this started, it kind of put a little bit of a fire under that to get that done a little bit quicker, because I felt like I was the conduit between the two places. And if one place was to come down with it, then both were going to, and it was going to transmit directly through me.
Right. That's responsible and probably the right thing to do. And I mean, we're supposed to be limiting our contact too. And if you're like in both places, that's, it's kind of a hard call to make, but.
Yeah. Well, and the thing was when I was doing all of that, I had never gotten overwhelmed or stressed by the amount of times that I'd interact with guys in early recovery. Right. Because there would be, 15 to, on average, about 15 clients over there, and then about 9 or 10 at mine. And so that's, at any given time, that's 25 people. There could be up to 30 people that I kind of come in contact with, and we talk about where they're at in their steps, and we, have these close personal connections with, where, I get something from them and they get something from me, even though it is a professional interaction. I mean, it is like it's a real sensitive subject, you know what I mean? So you just have to be real with each other. And that never really weighed in on me until all this came in. And then it was like, oh my God, there's so many possibilities for infection, and there's germs, and there's all these guys living in the same roof, under the same roof. And that was the only thing that ever caused any stress, was just the weight of that. You know what I mean?
I remember when I was in sober living and somebody had gotten bed bugs, and it's like, you're in such close proximity, especially when it's a house. It's a little different with an apartment complex that we went through. Yeah. But like at a house too, it's like, man, I mean, you're sharing sinks, you're sharing, the toilet, everything, all the door handles. Like it's, and another thing with like the sober living stuff I was thinking about with all this is like, man, early recovery is already kind of sketchy, and I feel like this is a very stressful time for people. And like, a lot of jobs that are affected by this are probably some people in early recovery. Those are the jobs that they can get, like cook staff, wait staff. It's I don't know, man. That's like that was the first thing I thought about all this is like, those of us that have a few years, it's like, we can go without having in-person meetings for a while and probably okay, but some of those early recovery guys are probably really struggling to maintain. They don't even have a grasp on their own recovery yet, and then now they're having to like, figure out a new way to do it that hasn't really ever been done before. It's just weird. I mean, I don't know.
I can say that with the guys that I have right now, I'm really proud to say that all of them are working.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Like when I actually sat down and realized that, I was very surprised. All but one, and he's only been with me for like a week. You know what I mean? So he's still in that grace period of getting a job, and one of them got out and came to sober living and had a job in 4 days. Right. That's awesome. What I mean? And I realized that it is difficult this is a difficult time, but the one thing that I did kind of start to understand is that us as addicts in recovery, and even those in early recovery, like we're built for this.
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we are.
At this point, the resilience
yeah.
is there. It's developing. Like if you've been in treatment for 30 days or whatever, you started to develop some resilience. You started to develop the coping mechanisms to work through stress, and then you're just dumped into a world full of it. Well, we live in that 24/7. For
Our
the last
addictions are chaos.
Yeah, for the last X amount of years, we've been into that chaotic, stress-induced environment where we're forced to either make it or break it. And I think that's given a lot of us a sense of resilience that the rest of the world doesn't have. Yeah. And so this pandemic has blown up, and it's stressful times.
Right.
But we're a lot of us. I know that that's not the case for everybody. But a lot
I feel
of
like
us
people who have like a year and past have like gone on the other side of their addiction.
Yeah.
And they kind of you know what I mean, like we're not as stressed by this, like, I mean, I'm like, when I go to the store, I'm kind of like, oh shit, I need to be weary of other people, but I'm like, man, this is like, not the worst thing I've seen.
Yeah, I was weird. I ran into Will yesterday at Market Street, and he was wearing a mask, and I didn't recognize him at first. And I normally do wear a mask. Sometimes I've gotten now so used to not, and I know it's probably not the right thing to be doing, but I just don't wear one. So he recognized me. And he said, "Hey, what's up?" And we went in for the hug, and then we were like, "Whoa, what do you do? How do we do this?"
That's a weird thing I've noticed too. Like when you go to the gas station and like I have to get receipts for work and stuff, and like like they'll hand me the receipt, and I like grab the receipt, but I try not to touch their hand. It's like, but it doesn't matter. Like I touch the receipt, but my mind is like, don't touch people. It's weird, man. It's weird how like this thing that is happening in the world is changing the way we have to think about our day-to-day life and our actions, and it's odd, man. I mean, it's the first time anyone alive, or mostly anyone alive, probably, unless you're somebody who's over 100 years old, has seen something like this. You know what I mean? It's just weird. Yeah. But
I think the adaptation that we're seeing, that's what I'm most impressed by.
Yeah.
The ability to adapt to what's happening quickly and almost in real time. I mean, I know it was uncomfortable for me for a few weeks to adapt. But even like the guys that are coming out now, and they're like I've picked up several guys in the last couple of weeks, and we drive from the treatment center to the house. You got to drive right through town. Right. And they're like, "Oh, I was kind of expecting it to be a little bit slower." And I'm like, "Well, I mean, people still have lives. People are still going to work. There's still a lot of things going on. They expected it to just be a ghost town."
Right.
You know what I mean? And then they dive right into it, and they adapt to the online meetings. They adapt to the IOP on Zoom. They're adapting to just kind of, I mean, one of the guys that's been in the house for a little bit longer is sponsoring the other ones, which is normally not okay. Normally not allowed. But since it is what it is, like that's one of the ways we've just kind of adapted to it. And it turns out that's really working really well. You know what I mean?
I know a lot of guys do that at the door, where they're, in different apartments, but I mean, they're still like right there, and they're basically all just roommates, but not,
Yeah.
But I can see how that in a house, it would be weird, because if you start getting resentment at your sponsor because he didn't do the dishes last night, it's kind of weird. But
or you start like, you move from that sponsor-sponsee relationship to just being buds. You know what I mean? Just you get real close friends, and then you kind of want to hold some stuff back, and it's a slippery slope, but it's been working really well right now. You know what I mean? But it's just one of those things we had to adapt to. I'm really impressed by the adaptations, but then again, I haven't gotten the opportunity to see that much slide back. You know what I mean? I've seen the normal relapses, the normal administrative discharges because of rule infractions and things like that. But I can't directly attribute to any of that stuff to the quarantine, to the COVID virus. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could go both ways, right? Like it could be stressful right now, and people in early recovery could relapse because of the pressure and stress. But like also at the same time, like this whole thing could kind of push people to like, oh, I gotta like stay on my shit, because like there's like hardly any jobs right now. And there's hardly like anything going on economically. Like, so I mean, and like that's where I kind of went with it. Whenever this happened, I was just like, oh shit! Like I just started working as much as possible, because like I don't know if like I'm not gonna have a paycheck in a couple weeks. So now I've kind of like, okay, plus I'm taking like 16 hours, and that has been a fucking nightmare with it going online. And I've had teachers that have added work because they feel like they need to for it being online. And it's just,
I'm sure I forgot I was going to school for the last couple of days.
When they added the extra week for spring break, I was like, cool. And then the week after that, I was like, oh,
I don't want to do this anymore.
When I had to come back to it, I was just like, fuck. Like, I can't imagine being, going to your master's. Like,
Oh, well, I mean, the transition's been kind of really easy for me since all my schooling's already online.
Mm-hmm.
So I've already been set up and been doing that. And then with work and stuff, working remotely is fairly easy for me. Everything I do is through a computer. So that transition was really easy at first. But then it started to be like the motivation piece, and being organized. I found I was kind of falling into like a little bit of a time warp, man. Like forgetting like what day it was, or losing track of time and stuff like that. Because like my life before the virus was very structured. Right. It's like I work 8 to 5, get off work, then I go to either a treatment center or I work with a few guys that hit me up and want to do step work. And then when I get home, I start on schoolwork, and like that piece between like the sponsorship and being able to go around and help people out in the community was really like my second win to get going on the schoolwork. But so right now it's like I go to work from 8 to 5, and then I log on the computer and I go and work on my school stuff, and it's like, man, like there's a big so like the motivation's just like like, what? Like, I have to do this? Why?
Yeah, no, I understand. The first thing I want to say is I'm impressed at how well I can hear him through that. I thought that was going to be a problem.
Can you pull the mic a little closer to you, though?
Yeah, of course.
But, like, it doesn't even sound muffled at all.
You can move it around, get comfortable, whatever you need to do.
Okay.
There's these deals on the side here that will help you move.
Pull it.
Yeah, there you go.
Perfect.
But, yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up the schedule thing because, I mean, there was, before all this happened, everything was literally in 30-minute blocks for me. 30 minutes to an hour block, aside from classes, they're an hour and a half, right? But from like literally Sunday through Saturday, like the only time that I didn't have to do something was usually Saturday afternoon. That was my free time. Right. But everything else was dedicated to school, to work, to the company, to something. You know what I mean? And it was all very structured. And I have on you see my Google Calendar.
Yeah.
My Google Calendar is color coded and like very meticulously put together. And then school got canceled or got shut down or whatever, and it all went to shit. I mean, there's nothing in my life is structured anymore. I did the same thing. Like once I left the other sober living where I was working and went back to just doing electrical work, I just dove straight into that because I'm trying to just put as much money in the bank as possible because I don't know what's going to happen. If say that the treatment center where the majority of my clientele comes from, they're dropping off, they're losing, their census is dropping and they're losing admissions, and that goes downhill, you know what I mean? And right now we're not going to feel the impact of that until months later when it all starts to accumulate, when we start graduating guys out, things like that. Economically, the company could be hurting really bad in the next month or two. So I'm just trying to shove as much money away as possible. Right. And so my focus has shifted entirely from the, school work, ASAS, recovery model to just make as much money as possible, try and get through this process. And that's been difficult. It's hard, Yeah.
Hey, I mean, at least we're all three working,
I'm very grateful for that, yeah.
Man, I know so many people through playing music that are like just totally fucked right now, like musicians, bar staff, waiters. I mean, it's not good, man, and I don't know. I feel like what scares me the most though is like, what if this we practiced yesterday and we were careful, we all social distance while we were practicing, but we were talking about at the end just like what if this doesn't ever really go away? Like what if it takes years sometimes to get cures and vaccines, and like this could be this way for a couple years, at least somewhat, like I don't know, man. It freaks me out to think that like we may never go back to like fully normal again. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's not good. Like I feel like a lot of systems can adapt and like change, but like there's some things that like live music, live comedy, stuff that you do in a group, like sporting events, like all that could have to go online or virtual reality or something. And I don't know. I feel like it's not good for us. Like
No.
we're social creatures. The worst thing you can do for a person is put them in isolation, and what do they call it in prison?
Yeah.
Seg. Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
The shoe.
Yeah.
The shoe. Yeah. Segregated housing unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of the most, I think that's probably the most daunting thing. And as a person in recovery, it's like, well, okay, there's nothing I can do about that right now. You know what I mean? Directly in my day to day, like I can't change that except for doing what they're asking us to do with the social distancing, try to flatten the curve and all that stuff. But I don't know. There's no way to know what's going to happen because it takes, when you think about it, it takes however long to develop a vaccine, which we really haven't heard that much about like one coming out like publicly. Right. I've heard like if you dig really deep into some news websites, you can find some information on there's multiple different,
I know I saw on Reddit recently that they've started human trials.
Yeah. There's some human trials going on, so that's good to know. But so how long does that take? And then my biggest concern is once they develop this vaccine, how long does it take before everybody in the country, if not the world, has access to it? Yeah. You know what I mean? Because ultimately, that's the most important part. It's just like the flu shot. Yeah. Like and this is in my uneducated head. I don't fucking know. Yeah. But that's the way I see it. Is like how long this could be. The end of the year before we all are safe, quote unquote safe. Right. But then even then, that little bit of a mindset that I had walking through your front door, I shook a guy's hand the other day by accident.
I've done that a couple times too.
Just like interacting with customers, right?
Yeah, same, at work. Customers. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah, we literally grabbed hands and we both looked at each other and said, we're not supposed to be doing this. Yeah. And we let go, but at that point it was too late. But that mindset, I think, is what is going to linger, and that's what is terrifying because, like you said, we're social creatures. Like I don't think I've ever like interacted with you without hugging you.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to hug you when I saw you because we always hug, but
that's been a challenge too, man. And I think like that kind of interaction too is just something that is so critical for like well-being and sense of like purpose and self. When I go and meet with guys or when I go to meetings and talk with people, I'm able to touch them and physically feel how they're doing and stuff like that. And that component, it's really hard when you meet with a sponsee over a Zoom meeting. It's different.
Same thing with class, dude. Like I have research methods and it's an 8 a.m. and it's still been an 8 a.m. but now we have to log into a Zoom meeting, and like I try to listen to the lecture, and like normally if I'm in person I'll drink coffee, I'm awake, I'm listening, but on the computer I'm just like she might as well be speaking like Arabic. I can't understand anything, dude. Like I just it just goes over my head. I have to rewatch the lectures a couple times. Like
that's one of the things I like to talk about too is like synchronous like education online isn't really that effective. So like what happened was this kind of hit the universities and they're all kind of scattering, trying to figure out solutions to like doing online schooling and stuff like that. As my master's is in educational instructional technology, so what I do is I study online teaching because that relates back to the program I made at Took Over Online, and that's not how any of my classes are set up. It's very self-motivated, where you have modules and you go in and you read about it and you have all this information and you're teaching yourself. The instructor is no longer like
instructing.
They're kind of taking like more of a passive role in your learning. Of course they're there through email if you have any questions or anything like that. You can have office hours and things like that, but teaching over Skype or over Zoom has not been something that's really effective.
No. Well, because in a classroom setting, you can raise your hand. You can have a discussion across the classroom, so that in-person instructor actually teaching the class and like kind of I guess directing everything, the flow of traffic makes sense because you can have discussions between students. Well, all my class, I haven't logged into class in 2 weeks because of that. You know what I mean? Because that's what I go to class for, is to have discussions with other students, not to watch the teacher sit at her desk and monologue. Like that's the most frustrating part is if I wouldn't do that, like I'll just go and listen to the the recordings. You know what I mean? But getting there at whatever time and sitting there, and because all my classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Well, that's my entire day. I'm just sitting at a computer when I could be, of course my mindset shifted into this other economical stage. So I'm just like, well, that's a waste. I'm paying a lot of money to sit in front of that computer. I'm going to go try and make some of that back. So sit there, watch the recordings later. But that makes sense of what you're saying, because it just, and what you said earlier, I just turn off.
I can't. I mean, and I've always taken online classes since I started at Tech, and I can do them when they're like, like how you described, like where it's like you have the modules and you have like a schedule of content that you have to go through, and like that's fine, but like just trying to listen to it, it's fucking, man, I just on, dude. Like before I know it, I've been scrolling Instagram while she's talking, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
I
don't know.
And that, it's no need to like, knock the professors or, the university. No. We weren't ready for it,
right?
But this is just another way of us to think about like going forward in the future. It's like, okay, we need a plan B.
A preparedness plan.
Yeah, we need a plan B for online instruction for all courses and all curriculums out there that can go into effect right away. Right. I've seen even at like the lower levels, like kindergarten through, 12th grade or whatever, like they need backup plans and curriculums and programs ready to go just in case, and they're doing the best they can. I mean, my mom's a educator as well, and she just she's doing she's spending 3 hours on a computer and Skype meetings and Zoom meetings and teaching mathematics and stuff like that. But I think that's another positive that we can look at this quarantine stuff and be like, hey, education might be able to get a little change, here where we're starting to push towards more online environments for students to take courses, because online school has a lot of benefits. I mean, I couldn't work full time
and not be online.
There's just no way I could physically do it any other way, because I have to spend 20 plus hours a week, sometimes 25 on my schoolwork, and then if you work 40 plus hours a week, I mean, there's not enough time in the day.
You can't travel back and forth quickly enough.
You can't. And with asynchronous communication, where you kind of just go into your class and you do it when you want to do it, instead of synchronous, where you have to be there for a scheduled time and stuff like that. That's why our Recover Online program is doing so well.
Right.
It's because we, offer a curriculum of online psychoeducational videos training everybody on CVT, mindfulness, and motivational.
And it's that model, the asynchronous model, where you go in and work at kind of your own pace. Yeah. So that
I was
going
to bring that up. It's crazy how that y'all started that. Debuted like 6 months before this, really, or?
We've actually have not had like we've had a launch, but it's been kind of a quiet one. Right. We're just trying to launch. Keep it managed and making sure that we can take care of all the clients that we're receiving. But
Smart.
We've made some huge strides in this past couple of weeks. We had our first client out in Michigan, and also North Carolina. A lot of the criminal justice programs, right, the probation, they require them to get services, outpatient services, right? And they don't have places where they can go. And like they need this requirement, so they go online and then they, find us. InTheRooms.org actually did a really good article on our creators, Dr. Kitty Harris and Dr. Jared Dempsey, on the Recover Online platform. So we've gotten a lot of referrals through them, as well as reaching out to other treatment centers and stuff like that, looking to convert to an online program as a backup. And that's really kind of been nice. I mean, I've been staying really busy with work and things like that, trying to, get this going remotely without my coworkers being there. But a lot of programs are looking to find like this alternative that's traditional of them being in the treatment facility, which is really critical because it reaches out to people that, one, can't afford treatment in the first place because insurance and stuff like that isn't covering it. And I get a lot of people that are, single parents with 4 kids. How are you supposed to work?
How are you going to, or even go for 3 hours every night? You know what I mean? Yeah.
It's impossible. So like the asynchronous kind of form of treatment where they can log in and do their videos and do their engagement with the program and with the system, it's all a standardized form of learning. So all of our clients get the same curriculum, same material. That's all been recorded, and then they're able to just go in and log in and learn from that program on its own, and then they check in with a therapist through teletherapy once per week and have an individual therapy session. It's a very effective form of treatment that, you know, is becoming more popular now due to this kind of stuff. And it's just kind of thinking about it, how online learning and online treatment and online communities and stuff like that really just need to pick up and be there for people that don't otherwise have access for, you know.
Well, you said something earlier that made me think that's what all of this is.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a plan B. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a better preparation for something else to roll down the line like this, where every component of our human life, whether it be school, education, treatment, even like self-help groups, AA, NA, and all these different places, this is going to give us the reason to have a plan B, implement a backup plan for when something does happen, whether it be something like this. I mean, even with like, I know we were all kind of young, but even with like 9/11, I mean, there was times where there was things I don't remember very clearly, but I remember us not wanting to go to like big, like you wouldn't want to go to a sporting event or anything like that.
For like 6 months to a year. People were very startled. And I was in 4th grade when 9/11 happened, but I can remember just the vibe was weird, man.
Yeah.
Like I remember thinking like as a kid, like what? Like what happened? Like I was confused, like who did that? But I mean it's weird how those things are similar, you know, like my buddy we were talking about this the other day, and he said like it feels like 9/11 in the sense that like the world will probably never be the same again after this event, you know, and I don't know. But it's crazy to me that that the Recovery Online thing launched right before all this thing, and that's like kind of a perfect storm for it to, you know, debut. And we'll link in the description for Recovery Online, right? Is what it's called. Yeah, I mean,
is it Recover or Recovery?
Yeah, recoveronline.org.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it's awesome. I mean. I don't know. It's at least we live in a world that's evolved enough to where we have options like that now. You know what I mean? It's you know, when the Spanish flu happened, like 1918 or whatever, I'm sure it was like, you know, when people had to isolate, there was nothing. It was just books. You know, I mean.
Could you imagine this happening before 2010?
But you know, I don't know. It'd be crazy. But I mean, so I heard somebody say the other day that you know, the Renaissance in Europe happened after the bubonic plague, so that's kind of exciting to think about, like
what's coming.
Yeah, what's coming? Like what like, you know, it could be a renaissance of technology and the fact that like our internet can get better, our technology of how to connect, you know, across the world could get better, which is it's already crazy how good it is, but like, you know, we could see it get like, you know, infinitely better, and it's just, I don't know, it's exciting in that sense. You know, there's positives to it for sure, but I don't know. I mean, like I said a while ago, it's like isolation is weird, man. It's like it's not good for people, you know, like it's easy to go crazy. Yeah. But I mean, I guess really you're kind of more isolated than the two of us because we're like going out every day. I mean, what do you do? Are you doing anything to like get out of your head? Are you?
Oh yeah. So I have my girlfriend's staying with me right now, and
That's good.
We do a lot of different fun activities. Like we paint. I think last night we went to Academy and got roller skates. So we're just picking up on, you know, things that we could just do.
That's
that
awesome.
We normally wouldn't, because we would normally, you know, either go out or go see a show, like dance show. Or like anything like that. We'd normally go out and have fun, or, you know, go see our friends and stuff like that. But now it's just kind of us, and we're just thinking of like, you know, board games. We watch a lot of movies now. Yeah. But I think the coolest thing was yesterday when we went out and got those roller skates, man. Because like I had no idea how to roller skate or whatever, but I was able to start picking it up. And,
that's awesome.
And having fun. It's like it's like the 4-wheeled one.
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
It's not roller blades. It's actual skates.
It's like derby style stuff. So just kind of picking up on like frisbee, disc golf, things like that, where you can just be outside but still be, you know, just isolated with like the person you're staying with or whatever. You know, I think one of the like critical things is like, you know, vitamin D and being outside.
Being outside.
Because like if you go through like one of like the checklists of like depression and stuff like that, like we could all fall under that category, you know, or at least a part of that, because we don't have a lot of social interaction. Like that's one of the, you know, signs of it, is being alone, being isolated. not speaking as much and things like that. And we're forced into that situation. And one of the things that, kind of help with depression and stuff like that is, being outside and being in the sun and letting that just kind of, soak in.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people that have, because like I said earlier, we're adapted to that as a recovery community, but then there's a lot of people that are either new in recovery or aren't in recovery at all, are seeing things that they've never experienced before, like depression, right? So you said vitamin D, social interaction. So like, what can we do? What else can we do, or can we try and tell folks to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think teletherapy.
Teletherapy.
I'm not trying to like tout Recover Online through this, but there's other organizations that do BetterHelp, some form of teletherapy. I mean, if we're struggling and having thoughts of suicide or anything like that, or really just down in your luck, the best medicine is just talking to somebody. I started especially a trained clinician. I started teletherapy last week. This past Thursday was my first ever online counseling session. I haven't been to a counselor in like 2 years since I got out of treatment. And then once all this started, I started experiencing all of what you were saying. You know what I mean? I was disconnecting from and there was that kind of overwhelming just general fear that everybody's experiencing. And so I even at 3 years sober, I thought, man, I was seeing a lot of signs of early relapse, right? And so that was one of the things I did was teletherapy. And I'm actually using family counseling services here in Lubbock, I think. And I'm working with an LPC intern. It's like $20 a session. I mean, I have no insurance. So it's really cheap.
It's cheap. And I've heard that too. That's awesome.
It's so worth it too. And like with the experience, like so I'm like a telehealth provider. So like I've been able to see like the back end of things and like how clients interact with it and stuff like that. And it's actually one of those components where it's actually really kind of effective.
Really?
Like it's not education, right? It's not like you're just talking over Zoom and talking about something, but it's actually just conversation, right? And I think like one of the weird things about like my generation and people that come after me and stuff like that is like we're very used to engaging with people online, like social media and stuff like that, and it kind of like removes like a wall that I see with like in-person therapy. There's some things where it's just like, I don't want to. Well,
we're right here in front of each other.
I don't want to talk about it.
You can feel the physical energy when something is awkward or uncomfortable in an actual therapy session.
Because you can't like in an in-person therapy, you'd have to physically get up and walk out of the room, and then you've got all this fear and guilt and shame as you're walking out. Whereas I get exactly what you're saying. And correct me if I'm wrong, but whenever you're on the teletherapy thing, if you get overwhelmed, you can hit a button and be gone. Right?
Exactly.
Because I felt that. I felt that because at one point she was making me like. Not making me uncomfortable. I was making me uncomfortable. She wasn't allowing me to manipulate her. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, I just got to hit a button. You know what I mean? And the greatest part about it is I was driving down the road. I was at work. So instead of having to call my boss and say, hey, I need an hour off. I got to drive there and drive back. Like, I need an hour and a half away from work today. Well, what's it for? Well, I need a counseling session, blah, blah, blah. Instead of going through that whole process, I could literally do it between jobs. I had it sitting on my mount and my dash, and she said, "Are you driving?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Is that okay?" I said, "I don't really care as long as you're cool with it." And we did an hour session with me driving down the road, and
that's cool.
And it was really helpful. I mean, it mitigated all of that stress that goes into counseling.
I'm sure there's like something psychological about like communicating with someone long distance who you don't really know. It's kind of like how catfishing works. You know what I mean? Like there's something about us as humans that when we're talking to somebody, we can't physically see, or like they're not close to us physically in person. Like we just are open up. I don't know what that is, but it's almost like kind of like a technological version of talking to God or something. You know what I mean? Like it's weird how it's just like, oh, I'm just talking right now. I don't know. It's weird.
And one of the big components of that is like you're in your own environment. You
have
control over your environment, and that's a critical thing in terms of like a healing process and stuff like that. I try that my best I can when I'm with sponsees and stuff is like go to them. Go be where they're comfortable at. I don't like to bring them over too much and stuff like that because I like them in their own environment and like where they're at, because it's very hard to think of like where you're at in life when you're not where you're at in life.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But I don't know. I think that the teletherapy piece is definitely something that's grown, that is going to show to be effective, you know, especially for substance use disorder and reaching out to people, you know, that normally wouldn't receive services any other way.
Right. And I think that may be one thing that doesn't revert back to normal.
Mm-hmm.
I would assume, at least for me, I know for myself, I don't think I'll go ever be like do an in-person counseling session if I didn't have to, you know what I mean? If it wasn't like required of me in some way or another, I prefer it.
Yeah.
You know, on a screen. That's the one thing I think I prefer online. The meetings, I don't know. I don't know if I have a preference. I think I'd still want to be in person at those.
Yeah.
But you know, and then I'm gonna start meeting with a sponsor again, which is a big step for me. For some reason, I haven't done it in a long time, and I feel the effects of it, man. It's crazy how I feel. I'm cautious to use the word hypocrite because I tell so many people in my day to day, you need to be working. You need to go call your sponsor. You need to work with the sponsor. You need to be doing this. And then I go home and just sit in my fucking self pity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like I've all my clients know this. Like I got really vulnerable with them the other night. I was like, hey, I've been a fucking asshole. You know what I mean? I haven't been taking care of myself like I should be. And I finally told I told Parker, like, hey, I'm struggling with some shit. And he said, all right, here's a phone number. If you don't call him, I'll fucking call him tomorrow. And I knew it took me a week to tell him because I knew no matter what, if I told him, I wouldn't be able to get myself out of it. Like I wouldn't be able to weasel out of it in some way or another. It is what it is. And now I'm going to meet with him as soon as we get done here. You know what I mean? I'm going to get on a Zoom meeting and meet with my sponsor for the first time. And that's a huge step for me that I think this entire thing going on forced me to do. It forced me into a position to, like I said earlier, either make it or break it. And I don't want to break. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to go through the struggles that I've gone through. I don't want to put the people that are alongside me now through that. Like I don't even want to think about going down that path again. And so
you're like a couple weeks away from 3 years, right?
The 7th of May. So is my 3 years. So it'll be soon. And that's the thing is like, that's coming up. I keep forgetting that's coming up. All this stuff is kind of my own personal recovery took a back seat to everything that was going on. And this situation with the kind of the lingering stress that just everybody's feeling, the stress of the company, the stress of everything that's going on, like a kind of a new relationship thing, like a bunch of other stuff that's going on, forced me to look at what was happening. And like I know it's kind of counterintuitive, but I'm really grateful for all this happening, even though like it's a really difficult time in everybody's life and people are fucking dying. Like this very well could have saved my life right now. You know what I mean?
It's awesome. It's funny because I'm glad you're here, Russ. For everybody listening, Russ is my last sponsor, and I haven't really called him about sponsoring me in like, I don't know, a year. But I told myself, you know, when we did our little tour, I was like, when I get back, I'm gonna get back into meetings, and since I've been at Tech and in the center, that's been like a bulk of my recovery.
Yeah, it's like a good substitution.
Being around you guys on a daily basis, like talking about recovery, spirituality on this podcast with friends, like just like letting like schoolwork and work and all the things, like all the goals I'm working towards kind of be my recovery. And now that's kind of like, it's not taken away from me. I mean, the music thing kind of has. I mean, there's not really much I can be doing right now other than writing, which I'm doing, but you know, it's kind of taken away from me. And like I told myself when I got back, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna really like, you know, get back into meetings on a regular basis. Like, and now it's
like it's giving you an excuse not to, right?
Yeah. And so I mean, I really need to like you know, stick to that, like I said. But I get what you're saying. It's I was trying to look up a while ago, like I don't know what the statistics are right now for like suicide rates, you know, but I'm sure that it's probably up for some people, you know, and it's weird, man. Like we're already in a weird state as far as mental health in this country, and I feel like something like this is just pushing it over the edge for a lot of people, especially 22 million people unemployed. Yeah. You know, what is exciting though is like when we get on the other side of this, we're probably going to see a surge in recovery as far as like people getting into treatment. And I hope so too. Like, and you know, I feel like recovery is getting more and more mainstream. It's being talked about more. It's being portrayed in films and television more. And it's like, you know,
with things like this.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel like I'm me, but I mean.
Well, I mean, just sitting here and being able to talk openly about recovery,
right,
and then put it on the internet for people to listen to.
Yeah.
Like, recovery just used to be kind of like most people, and especially me. I always say when I talk about my story, I thought AA was made up for like sitcoms and shit.
Yeah,
and that's what it was. It was just this secret little cult.
Like depressed people.
Yeah, they get together and just when in reality it's not that at all. Because I always associate it with Charlie Sheen for some reason. I don't know why. I've said that.
Tiger blood or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea. Somewhere in the back of my head, AA and Charlie Sheen go together.
I can see that.
And since then it's changed so much.
Just
but
AIDS and Charlie Sheen.
that's maybe. But like all these like things like this, like normalize it and kind of destigmatize it, because Russ isn't a bad guy. I'm not a bad guy. You're not a bad guy. We've all been. I have been, right? But we can sit here and have a fucking at least a somewhat intellectual conversation, right? And being able to do that as people in recovery, I think in my opinion, destigmatizes it entirely.
Right.
For me.
It's weird too because like, you know, it is an anonymous program and like there's a reason for anonymity. Jesus Christ. You know, especially if you have some kind of status and you don't want it getting out that you know, are in recovery. I can understand that. And like being in early recovery, it's probably safest to, you know, lay low and just like get some time under your belt, you know. But I feel like the day and age we live in, like people not talking about it, like gets people killed. You know what I mean? And I've seen recently there's a couple people I've seen on social media who like talk about being sober without 12-step recovery, and like that's cool, like good for you, but like it's also kind of dangerous, don't you? Like I think like you're putting that out there, and like what if somebody sees that and they decide like, yeah, you're right, I don't need 12-step, and then they're like, you know, 3 months later they're like, oh, I don't need to be sober, and then, you know, a day later they're dead. You know what I mean? And it's just dangerous, you know. But there's a lot of people that talk about recovery who are famous and doing well, like Theo Vaughn, Bobby Lee, Moshe Kasher, all three like very successful comedians who are in recovery and talk about it on a semi-regular basis through their comedy and podcasting. And you know, like Shameless Lip got into recovery for a while. Like they portrayed that whole thing. I loved that. He was sponsoring guys. I was like, dude, that's so cool. Like, you know, seeing
it was pretty accurate.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
which is surprising.
It's just cool. You know, I mean, and that was kind of the goal of this thing when I started, was like, you know, playing music and being in recovery here in Lubbock. Like I live in two worlds where I'm like at the bars on weekends and then I'm like at AA on, you know, or CA on Monday or whatever. And I see both sides of this world where like, there are some people who could use some recovery for sure, who are like, you know, probably addicts or alcoholics, and they don't know that yet, but they're going to figure it out soon. Or there's some people that may just be struggling with substance abuse who may not really actually be addicts and alcoholics, but they could learn a thing or two for some of us in recovery about spiritual principles and like just not how to fuck up your life. You know what I mean? Because we've all been to the other side of it, to where we almost died or fucked everything up, and now we're like, you know, getting our shit back. And
or just people dealing with mental health. I mean, that's one thing that I ran into a lot in my personal life, because I try to like I'm surrounded by recovery so much. Like I try to have like personal friends or the person I'm dating like be kind of, you know, quote unquote normal, right? Just to kind of get a different perspective on things in my life and have two different kind of worlds, really. I guess I don't know. Anyways, that kind of sounded weird, but anyways, I've learned that like some of my family members, some of my friends, things like that have approached me with mental health, and they ask about it. Well, all of the stuff in these books, if you just take the word, you know, alcohol out of it, like it still applies to these people directly. You know what I mean?
There's people who are in Al-Anon that they just, you know, Al-Anon helps tons of people, and they're not even addicts and alcoholics. They're just people who have dealt with mental health issues, along with somebody they care about who's in addiction. Like, it's just as much of a problem for our friends and family as it was for us, even if they're not the ones drinking or drugging. You know. Well,
like I said earlier, we're almost thriving in this situation because we've been forced to deal with all of that stuff, and we've been given all these resources. Well, everybody has that kind of in the back of their head, this little bit of a depression, this little bit of stress, anxiety, whatever it is day to day. Like, our lives are stressful. Right. Even if you have a normal life, you make good money, you have good personal relationships, there's still something in the back of your mind that is hard to deal with, right? Yeah. Whatever it may be, some childhood trauma, like an old ex, a breakup or something like that. There's always something lingering in the back of our human brains. We hang on to that shit. And so since we've been able to kind of go through this process and deal with it and resolve it, everybody else is just kind of hanging on to it. It has that little bit of a resentment that they just are able to deal with. It doesn't cause them to drink. It doesn't cause them to get crazy or do any stupid shit, but they still deal with it. Right. Well, being forced into these darker times, like I said, for me, it forced me out of it, right? It's forcing me out of it right now. Mm-hmm. So if I was to say anything to anybody that is kind of dealing with this shit right now, if it's getting worse because of this epidemic, like, it's because that was already there. Yep. You know what I mean? There was something already in the back of your head that you weren't able to deal with. Yeah. But, going to the gym, like that was my medicine for a long time. So like, that's probably one of the biggest reasons that now that that's been taken away from me, I can't deal. You know what I mean? Like, going to the gym, being able to go to bars, being able to go to concerts, go have dinner with your friends. All those things were kind of their substance of choice, their drug of choice. Right. And now all that stuff gets taken away from you. You're detoxing from that shit. Now you're just faced to deal with the problem.
Just you.
Wherever
you go, there you are.
Yeah.
That's the thing is, like, we in recovery, we go through so much heartache and, tragedy and trauma, and then we get sober and we lose our coping mechanism because our coping mechanism almost killed us. Yeah. So we're forced to learn new coping mechanisms, and all these people, they don't have a way to cope. They don't have. Yeah, it's exactly what you just said. It's just like, we're ready for this shit.
We're fucking fortunate, man.
Yeah, very.
And that's what I've been trying to like convey to everybody all the guys in early recovery is like, yeah, this shit is hard, but you're equipped for it. You know what I mean? You're a 4x4 in the snow where everybody else is a 2-wheel drive, and they're having a hard fucking time. Yeah. But you're equipped for it. You've been given the tools, and it's up to you to use the tools. Yeah.
Stress, depression, isolation, those are all things that we all dealt with in our addiction.
Fuck.
I feel like almost everyone got to a point to where, like, when you just have you and the drug or drink, and it's like that's all you're doing, and like you shut everybody else out for however long, and you're just like, I just want to be alone so I can fucking abuse myself. You know what I mean? Like, we all get to that point, and it's kind of similar to being quarantined, I guess, sorta. I mean,
I quarantined myself a handful of times just to not see.
Yeah,
I just didn't want to see people. You know what I mean? I didn't want. It wasn't that I didn't want to see people. Yeah. I didn't want anybody to see me.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I feel that. Yeah.
I was ashamed of the things I was doing, but I mean, somebody told me this when I was in treatment, that those times that I was living in then, it was a gift of desperation. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people are being given that gift right now. That this quarantine, that it's just packaged in this quarantine. You know what I mean? We're all collectively dealing with something that's never happened before. It's unprecedented times. Well, the people that need it most are given this little nice gift of shit, and it's up to you to do what you're gonna do with it. You know what I mean? Are you gonna dig further deep into what you've been digging yourself into over the last 10 years, or are you gonna step on that and get out? You know what I mean? You're gonna try and get out. So I don't know. I know that's what I've been taking away from it and trying to preach, I guess, to my clients and trying to help them dig themselves out. And I'm really proud of everybody that's been dealing with it right now.
Yeah.
I think this is probably the best time to go to treatment, though.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder how it's affecting the treatment centers economically. I mean, I wonder. Yeah.
It's bad.
It's bad.
I'm sure they're probably cutting prices and allowing people in for.
I don't know about the admission side of it. I do know that the big local treatment center here had to furlough folks. You know what I mean? Because of I think the census has dropped some, but like I was saying earlier, there's the inflow has dropped too. Like the amount of people coming in to get services has gone down. So that's affecting the projected, what I mean, market, right?
So 6 months from now.
Well, yeah, and I think it comes down to a lot of like the cost, right? And knowing if like people are losing their jobs and things like that. They don't know what the future holds for like, you know, their family in terms of financials. And like making that big of an investment and going in to, you know, go receive treatment services, it's like people are just focusing on like getting like the
by.
essentials, like food, and that's what they're spending, you know, their money on right now. And then also too, it's like you got to think of like the detox process as well.
Yeah.
Like we've all been through detox. Like we understand, like you have like basically the flu.
Yeah.
You know,
For
it looks just like
days
it,
or weeks,
it looks just like that. And like how our treatment center is gonna be able to like tell and sort through that process. I mean, it's just something very, very challenging. You know, but I think. Yeah, I agree with you, Marcus, in terms of like, this if you can afford it, and this is a great time to go to the treatment, you know, and receive services and take the time off, like if you are out of a job or anything like that, you know, and want to go and invest yourself. So once this stuff is done, and we can move forward from it, it's like we have a clean, sober foundation built up while, you know, the rest of the world was kind of like, you're not taking a step back because like everyone else is kind of like, you know, we're not doing too much.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like you said, I think if you, I think a lot of people maybe have jobs that have either been furloughed from or they've been, you know, put on stay at home. So they're quote unquote non-essentials, but maybe you're still getting insurance or whatever it is, however the case may be. I mean, cause I don't know if you could pull this up, but I'm really curious to know what like liquor sales have been, how they've been influenced by this, because
I bet they're like high right now.
Yeah, well, because I mean, if you think about it, like liquor stores were deemed essential, and we know why, right?
Oh yeah, people die.
Well, have you seen the video of the guy jogging through his neighborhood and he's looking at the recycling?
And just bottles, bottles on top of bottles. But I mean, like think about it. If they close down liquor stores, like somebody that's just been aggressively drinking for the last 6 years, 10 years, they're gonna die. So like, there's a lot of people that have wondered, like, well, why is alcohol sales still, you know, deemed essential? What does it say?
It's the
55%.
Yeah, 55%. This alcohol sales surged by 55%.
That was on March 31st too. Holy shit, that was a month ago.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the.
Yeah, because I mean, like now, the thing is, maybe you're say you work in an office and you can do your job from home. Well, you could do your job from home, but there's also liquor in your house, and it doesn't fucking matter if you're at home getting a little drunk. You know what I mean? But then that causes problems, and eventually you could, you know, go down this path where your, you know, moderate alcohol use disorder is now a severe alcohol use disorder.
Right.
And then what? You know what I mean? What are you just going to keep going down this path, and then once you go back into the work, once everything starts to normalize, quote unquote normalize, how are you going to deal with it then? You know what I mean? So I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we will pick up in the number of like substance use disorders emerging out of, you know, this time. I mean I would believe that.
Yeah.
Just because that's like a coping mechanism that people can use right now. You know. So.
Yeah, and not to get too political, but it's like, you know, maybe this will be the thing that pushes us as a country to really look at our healthcare system.
Yeah.
And because, like, not only the actual virus itself and the medical field and insurance and you know, all of that and prices and everything, but also, like, on the other side of this, the healthcare part of it, if we have a surge in people who are, you know, becoming addicted and you know, hopefully, maybe it'll push us to the edge where we're like, hey, we really have to come up with some kind of healthcare, like some kind of basic, you know, coverage that helps us all, you know. And it's, I honestly think that if we focused on addiction, and you know, it's kind of weird to say during the midst of a pandemic, but if we focused on, we're never going to solve addiction, we're never going to get rid of it completely, but if we could mediate a lot of that and fix a lot of people and get a lot of people recovered and in recovery and sober, we'd probably fix a lot of the other things in our country. Health, you know, crime, you know, violent offenders, you know, drunk driving, wrecks. Like there's so many things that addiction like affects throughout all of our society. You know, it's I don't know.
I mean, if you look at the stats of it, I mean, I can remember from my undergraduate is like, you know, 18 million people, you know, can be diagnosed with a substance use disorder that wanted services.
Oh wow.
but couldn't
afford it.
Oh,
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
18 million.
18 million.
I remember when managed care shut down here, 6
yeah.
months ago. I like hurt my heart to think about how many people are going to die
Yeah.
in this area, all of West Texas, because they don't have insurance. Now they don't have a way for the state to put them anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just jail or die.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's, I don't know. I mean, I know the drug court here helps a lot of people, and like I know the drug court's kind of involved with the Recover Online, right? And so that's good. But I mean, as far like some people, I needed to go to treatment. I needed to get away and go to therapy and go to group and talk about all this shit and figure out where I went wrong and why I was, fucked off in the head and needed to, take a break and get sober and find God and all that. I needed to get away to do that. And some people just need that,
Yeah.
And it's weird too. I feel like, some people who are normies and don't deal with it probably look at that as like, what are you getting a vacation to go get sober?
I hear that all the time.
Yeah. My girlfriend I was dating during my addiction, and when I went to treatment would say, "You're on vacation and I'm out here trying to fucking work." And I was like, "Oh, thanks,"
And I relate a lot of like treatment processes and stuff like that. It's just like you're going to learn how to stay sober. You're gonna go learn the tools and stuff like that. And people that are struggling with a substance use disorder, there's hundreds of different ways to go and learn about what it means to be in recovery, and what it means to be somebody that is trying to strive for a different life, and you can get that at any range.
Some people just end up in AA and get sober there. That's
incredible.
That's really what we're all trying to do, is point you to, is get into a 12-step recovery.
That's the funniest thing, is like, because like I have my family probably won't care, but I have two sisters, older sisters, that are in recovery now.
Really? So all of y'all siblings?
Mother. Yeah.
Wow.
And my mother. Yeah. So
that's awesome.
I've well over 5 years. My other sister has 5. My other sister has 1, and my mom's like at 3 or 4.
That's awesome.
Years in recovery, and they all got clean through AA.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was so pissed. I was like, I went to Baton Rouge. I stayed in residential treatment for about 5 months.
Oh shit.
I came out here, stayed in treatment for residential for like another month. Then I spent like my whole first year like under like monitoring, like being drug tested and under monitoring, and they just went to meetings and they were fine. I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
What the heck?
I mean, everybody's different, and some people need detox. I needed detox and needed meds to kind of get regulated, and like had medical stuff going on too, and But I mean, like I said, I really hope that maybe, it's crazy to me to think that like we had a Democratic Socialist candidate before all this, and like getting $1,200 to every citizen is kind of a Democratic Socialist thing. Like healthcare is being talked about right now. That's a thing that he ran on. And not to get political, but I don't really know where you guys lie, and I'm not a big political person. I don't keep a watch of it, but it's just I don't know. It's interesting.
I read that his book or whatever.
Oh, really?
Bernie Sanders' book. And bought a campaign hat and stuff. And
really?
was really looking,
I have a bit of form.
I was
both
really
times.
looking forward to it, but
I don't know what happened. Why did he drop out?
I don't.
Biden was beating him in the polls and stuff like that.
So he just decided it'd be easier to dip out.
Oh yeah, it's
easier.
easier.
I think it was for either Virginia or Pennsilvania, a swing state that Biden won. That kind of was like
it was like that was a nail in the coffin.
Which is fucking crazy, because the dude.
This dude's like got suffering from dementia, right?
Dude, he's out of there, man. Yeah. He doesn't even make sense.
I've watched some of the. I mean, like I'm probably the most uneducated one in the room as far as political views go. I don't know anything, but I've seen the YouTube clips of him making speeches. Like there's like a shitload of them in a row in succession, where it's just horrible mistakes. And that is crazy. It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm a person that I try to take an approach of like what I need out of like a government and stuff like that, and just kind of sorting that out, and just understanding that like my views and like my understanding of what that is going to be completely different for the rest. And that's why we have the election process, and things like that.
I like stuff out of both camps, like I think you should. I heard somebody say like, I think you should be able to smoke weed while carrying a gun at your gay friend's wedding.
Well,
that's me too, man.
I do want to ask one question. Why the fuck is there 63 different genders and there's only 2 political parties?
I heard that the other day.
Yeah, like what?
Yeah.
Why?
That's pretty crazy.
That I don't remember where I heard that.
I think Tim Dillon said it on Rogan.
That probably.
Yeah.
I listened to a lot. I've listened to every Rogan episode in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So probably, but that's like that sentence stuck out to me.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
I was
to
like,
think of that.
holy shit.
It's money, man.
I mean, it blew me away to think about it that way, because there's only 2 different political parties. But if you look at any other thing that we do,
There's a million other options.
we're not that divided in anything other than politics.
Music genres, types of food,
sports teams. I mean, it doesn't matter. Nobody's ever that divided as a nation, except for when it comes to politics.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it's strange.
It's almost like they want us to like fight each other or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like a Civil War type thing
Civil
here.
That.
Oh man.
I mean, I don't know. I really like what you pointed out, and the fact that like us in recovery, we're kind of well equipped to do all this, and it's a blessing, And I mean, I feel guilty now that I've let a month go by without addressing all this stuff on the podcast. I just whenever this kind of hit, I was just like, oh shit! I just kind of went into like alert mode where like I gotta like work and make money and just make sure that. I started freaking out. I was like trying to find a gun.
Yeah. Oh God.
I got you.
Right. Like a couple of my friends are just like, dude, you got to get a month's food supply, get a go bag, get a gun, dude.
No, dude.
And I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just,
no, yeah, I think the scramble, the last month has definitely been a scramble and like reorganizing of, our lives and like the emotional states that we're in. Because I mean, we are in like a pretty stressful time.
Yeah.
Like I'm definitely somebody that processes things a lot slower.
Right.
I internally process things for a while before I actually like come to terms with like anything like that. And I think like the stress and like I think I saw like from my newsfeed yesterday, it's like 200,000 people have died in like the world.
Yeah.
Because of
I
this.
haven't looked at the stats.
Yeah. See if there's a clock. Is there like a debt clock?
I know Twitter keeps it like pretty regular. So
cases 23,000 in the United States.
The world. 2.9 million cases,
In the
206,000 deaths.
Yeah,
that's the world.
That's the world.
Yeah.
But then 875,000 recovered, which is crazy to me. So the girl I've been seeing, she got tested 2 weeks ago, something like that, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and she was sick. She was symptomatic. She had all the symptoms that would qualify to get tested, right? Fever, respiratory distress, stomach. She had the stomach stuff.
Yeah.
A couple other things I can't remember right now. But she got tested, and they told her, okay, just go home. Yeah. Don't leave your house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
there's nothing we can do.
Yeah. And then it took 4 days to get the results back, and that was honestly the most stressful 4 days that I've ever.
We were texting, I think, in the middle of that, right? Because you were like. Or no, I think we were texting right after you found out she was clear.
Yes, I did. Yeah, because it was Tuesday. Because I was supposed to move out of because I was managing one of my locations, and I was supposed to move out Saturday. Well, she got tested Friday morning, so I called the folks that I was working for and said, "Hey, the girl I've been seeing, she just got tested. She's symptomatic. I got to leave right now." Left, didn't talk to anybody else again. Literally went and grabbed a trailer from work. Put all my shit on a trailer and moved to my apartment a day earlier. I had to pay a little extra. Called the leasing company and said, "Hey, I got to get out now. Here's the deal." And they just left everything outside for me.
That's cool.
They were super cool about it. And I got everything moved in like 6 hours. I moved all of my belongings into my apartment, and then I just stayed there for 4 days. You know what I mean? And I went to work, but I didn't see anybody. I already had my service truck, and I just got remotely dispatched from my house.
That's good.
I don't see anybody when I'm at work anyways. I'm outside all day. But yeah, for 4 days, it was the most stressful time, not really knowing, because I felt fine, but this asymptomatic case thing is very terrifying to me, because none of us really know who's actually got it, who doesn't. Yeah. And that blows my mind too. It's something with blood type, and I don't know.
It's crazy to think about. Like, I'm not saying that I'm not conspiracy into it, but it's crazy.
Let's go down this fucking path.
Well, if you think about it though, it's like, if you were like a tyrannical government or a government that wanted to be tyrannical, and you think about like what can we come up with for a way for people to give up their rights and be willing to be microchipped and like be watched constantly, be like, oh, it's a virus that only kills some people and then everybody gets it, but not everybody like gets sick.
Yeah.
It's weird to think about. I'm not saying that I believe that, but
Russ is just like, oh shit, they got us.
I mean, I think like the weirdest part about it that I just haven't been able to wrap my mind around is like that this all started from someone eating a bat.
I know. If you think you don't fucking matter, this is one guy's fault.
But the thing about it though is they've been doing that. They've been eating bats for centuries.
Yeah. Well,
you know what
from
I'm
what
saying?
I understand, right? It was like it may have gotten released from a lab that was.
There's multiple theories.
Yeah,
that's legit. And you can look it up, or I'll pull it up real quick. Harvard professor.
Yeah.
But it was in Wuhan, and they were creating this as a weapon, right?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Here's justice.gov, the actual Justice Department website. Harvard University professor and 2 Chinese nationals charged in 3 separate China-related cases. I've already read through this. Dr. Charles Lieber. He got caught with having these 2 Chinese nationals working as TAs for him. And they were they're Chinese nationals. Like, they were under the guise that they were here as students, but they were, like, working for the Chinese government. And this dude got arrested with, like, 2 vials of something trying to leave the country. And, like, the Chinese nationals supposedly were from Wuhan, where there's a chemical weapons lab there. Like, it's fucking, I mean, that's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You know, like... You know, if it is a coincidence, that's fucking weird. You know? And I mean, you know, I've heard like all kinds of conspiracy theories about it. I'm not like heavily into that shit because like my addiction was like I was so heavy into conspiracy theories, it fucked up my mental health. So I don't really dig deep on that kind of shit because it's like hand in hand with my psychosis. You know? But like still, man, it's fucking weird. You know, I mean,
well, it's incredible how one series of events impacts billions of people. 8 billion people. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. It's incredible, and it changes everybody's life on a fundamental level. Yeah, you know what I mean. Yeah. It's incredible how that can happen, but I don't know. This is now we just have to figure it out. You know what I mean? I mean, it's kind of irrelevant how it started, really. Yeah. You know? Yeah. It doesn't really matter. I mean, but like what does, regardless of conspiracies or not, like what does scare me is like, what will the government do under the guise of like protecting us from coronavirus? You know what I mean? Well, think about it. Like they have everything is canceled. Yeah. Everything. Yeah. All are capitalist revenue generators. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. The big sports, big mass communication, all that has shifted, and it's all gone away now. Like how much money is not being made because of just the UFC alone? Yeah. The UFC alone is not generating any of that money. UFC, I mean, all of the sports stuff. NFL, NBA, MLB. Not season, but yeah. I mean, everything. Well, it's not going to, but let's be honest, it's probably not going to happen. No, yeah. You know what I mean? Dude, 2021, they're talking about just bands and touring and stuff. They're talking 2021 now. And I mean, we should have had March Madness all month long. You know what I mean? How much money was not didn't change hands last month just because of March Madness not happening. Yeah. You know what I mean? So this has put a stop on everything. And our government's really just kind of been able to say, "Hey, don't do this," and we've just not done it. Yeah, and which is awesome because that shows that like most people are. It's weird because it's like that's good that we all like are like, yeah, I care about your grandma not getting sick. I'm like, that's awesome. Like I want to think that like humans we are capable and we do think about other people and we aren't just fully selfish. But it's also kind of scary in the sense that like, oh yeah, we'll just do whatever the fuck the government tells us. Exactly what they tell us to, because they know that in a time of like it was shown in 9/11, in a time of like or national distress, we come together. Right. Right. So why not just use that against us, right? Yeah. Because that's what's ultimately is what's going to happen. Like even if this is all reality, like it is, like it was an accident, and this was just kind of the series of events that the world chose to, kind of cleanse itself, it's going to get used against us. You know what I mean? Like, how do we know that there's not some sort of really easy resolution that they just haven't put out? Because at this point, it's just easy to control everybody. It's easy to, I mean, my hometown, if you're out in public and you're not wearing a mask, it's $1,000 fine on the spot. Yeah. Wow. I know they're doing that in Austin, like San Francisco. I love Xperia. We haven't really,
gotten to that point yet. But
yeah, but we're still under, I think we're still at what,
stay-at-home order.
Well, yeah, but 1% infection rate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Lubbock County has what 500 and some cases, but
it was showing a while ago. Let's see, Lubbock County
470 confirmed,
39 deaths.
But 470 out of what 255,000 people. What's that percentage? A little bit more than 1%. But,
yeah.
I mean, like where Dumas is, I think right at 1%. I think I did the math yesterday. It was 1%. But that county is put in, like, I mean, there's a 10 p.m. curfew. You can't, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, how the fuck does being inside change anything?
I mean, after a certain time, I don't know.
It only comes out at night.
like what? Like,
I think the idiot kids that live there were like still partying and stuff.
That
and
makes sense. Yeah.
And so, but
that's how you tell who's like, breaking protocol.
I guess. Yeah, I guess, but. It's just crazy that they put $1,000 fine on if you're not out wearing a mask. Yeah. And I was.
It's crazy to think that there's no way there's hardly anybody alive unless they're in a fucking coma that doesn't know what's going on. You know what I mean?
Amish know? I guess the Amish know, right?
Surely.
I saw a joke about that. Like, has anybody let the Amish know what's going on?
Oh my god!
Like I was thinking about, like, there's just a guy who comes out of a coma, and there's like, it's like 28 Days Later. If you ever seen that, where he just comes out of a coma and the whole world's fucking destroyed.
Yeah.
But
that would be horrifying to walk into something like this. I think there's a lot of people coming out of treatment that are like that. Like,
yeah.
I knew there was a lot of shit going on in there because like the therapists were wearing masks and they like did the screening when I got there. But whoa, like, could you imagine like being in long-term treatment or even prison or something and getting released to this?
Dude, when I was in treatment, I had a case manager who had been to prison for like 20 years or 30 years or something. And he said when he got out, he like went to a bathroom somewhere and he was like, what the fuck? Like, he didn't know like the automatic disposal things. Like cell phones weren't a thing when he went in. Yeah. Like, I was like, dude, that's crazy to think about. That like in 20 to 30 years, like the whole fucking world changed. Like if you went into jail in 1990, came out in 2020, like there's fucking, like there's forms of robots in places. Like there's robot lawnmowers and shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's crazy to think about like
how much changes over time.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, and we're going through some big changes right now.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like we'll look back on this when we're older or when our kids are older. Or like this will be like 9/11. Like, the world changed after that, And I don't know. As long as like my thing of thinking about it is like, I'm a pretty homebody except for music. And like that's if that gets taken away from me, like that's the one thing that I'm like, dude, I mean, not to sound selfish, like I feel awful for all the people who can't work right now because of this, but like, man, that's the one thing that I'm like, dude, this is what I'm trying to do for my life, like, I don't know, man, it sucks. It's just, scary. I mean, I feel blessed and grateful that I like have a day job and like I'm still able to pay my bills and work and eat, and I'm not totally fucked, but I don't know, man. But well, that was like over an hour, man. I really appreciate you guys coming in and doing this, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
For everybody listening, you just try to stay positive. If you're struggling, reach out to somebody.
Yeah.
Reach out to me if you listen to this podcast. Like, if email me at weirdfatsoberpodcast@gmail. I will email you back. Like, I'll Zoom with you, whatever, man. Like, the one thing is like, regardless of like conspiracies and how this changes the world, like we're all still people and we all still can get through this together. And like, there's still positive aspects to everything that's going on. Like, like I said earlier, that I heard that, the Renaissance happened after the bubonic plague. So it's like, this could change the world, but it also could change the world in the best way. Yeah. Like, I was thinking about this, like, what if this is like a trial run for how it's going to be when AI takes over? Because like when AI takes over, all the jobs are going to be gone. Everybody's going to be like working on a computer. Mm-hmm. And it's like there will be a need for people to be creating art and music and there, whatever the thing that you'd like to do the most creatively or just your hobby or passion, like if you can take time to work on that right now, if you have all this time, just try to, do something that makes you happy and is positive and good for you, and reach out if you're struggling. That's the biggest thing. But you guys got anything to add to that?
Yeah, man, I agree with that. I've learned how to use Photoshop in this time where I've just kind of been doing nothing instead of watching. My internet was down for a while, but I had Photoshop installed on my Mac. Nice. So I kind of just and played with that for a while. I'm horrible at it,
Hey,
but I at least tried. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one good thing to definitely do is like if you have access to something that you've never done before. I actually started reading a little bit the other day, which was incredibly difficult for me. I just memorized a bunch of words. But yeah, I started reading a little bit and running. I've always ran, but like that, it's gotten a lot more intense for me, a lot more involved. And sometimes just doing stuff that I'm not comfortable doing, you know what I mean? And that's what I would encourage everybody to do. And then, of course, reach out to me. I'm always available. I've got my website is thecovelbk.com.
Yeah, we'll add it in the description too.
Yeah, and then the Cove LBK on Instagram and Facebook. We're always there. My personal cell phone number is all over that stuff. Like
nice.
My personal cell phone number is always available to anybody that needs help, whether you're in recovery or not, whatever you need. Like my ultimate goal is just to help people, man. I don't want anybody to feel the way that I felt before. And if I can do anything to help, folks get out of that, that's my number one goal. So all that stuff's there available if anybody ever needs it.
Nice.
Yeah, I think closing thoughts for me is just, stay positive like Dan was saying. If you're struggling or if you're going through anything, that there are people that you can reach out to, whether it's, on Facebook or, cell phone or even looking into teletherapy or anything like that. There is ways to, get help right now. Also the importance of, being outside. I'm not saying you got to go places and stuff like that, but if you take cigarette breaks or anything like that, just go outside, spend some time out there. It's good to exercise. Like I picked up on rollerblading and stuff. I'll probably keep going at that. And for our folks in recovery, man, keep it simple. There's not a lot, of work to get done. Too much going on, so don't stress about trying to, get things going and things like that. Seek out people that you care about in the community and talk with them in terms of like step work and stuff like that. Get with somebody to do Zoom meetings. I'm always open to meet with people through Zoom and talk about the big book or whatever is going on. But in terms of like going to meetings and stuff like that, just stay home. Don't try and go out and do that right now. Online meetings, intheRooms.org.
Yeah,
great
you can
place.
go to a meeting anywhere in the world right now.
Yeah, great place. I actually had a sponsor or a sponsee, utilizing those after he was done with treatment here because he just was in a rural community before this whole thing. So, I know there's a lot of people out there that are sharing their story online and things like that. Just stay connected to your people the best you can, and then if you need anything, just reach out to them.
Awesome.
Thanks, Russ.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Camera died right then. So.
Oops.
Perfect.
Perfect timing.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.